Hello everyone and welcome back to 35mm. Today I'm going to be telling you about Dehancer Pro. It is a tool that will help you convert your digital files from your digital camera to give you film looks just like that. Dehancer Pro is a film editing plugin for Final Cut, DaVinci Resolve, Premiere Pro, After Effects, and it helps to take off the digital look from your digital files from your camera like Canon, Sony, Panasonic, Blackmagic, Red, Ari, or whatever camera you're shooting on, whatever digital camera you're shooting on, and takes off that digital look and gives you a filmic look as quickly as possible with just few sliders here and there. With Dehancer Pro, they are very unique to other video editing plugins because they have film stocks built in, they have film profiles built in, and they have a lot of unique tools that makes it easy to convert your digital files to make them look like they were shot on film. Now I'm gonna go into Final Cut, which is my editor of choice, to walk you through 4 of my edits, and afterwards I'm gonna give you a special offer just for you at the end of the video, so stay tuned. When you're loading your file into Final Cut and you go into your effects tab and look for film emulation, when you get there you're going to see Dehancer Pro and you drag and drop that on your clip, and when you open it up you see you have a plethora of tools at your disposal. So for this we're going to go first into input, and this is where you can normalize your clip. By default it goes to Rec 709. You see you have other options here, but if you want to normalize specifically for your own camera brand, then you go to choose camera. When you go to choose camera you select the vendor. In this case I was shooting with the Blackmagic. I was shooting with the Ursa 12K, but since 12K is not available in this option right here, I'm just gonna go with the cinema camera 6K for this demonstration. It was film and it was Gen 5, so we're good on that. And from the get-go it already looks interesting, right? This is where we're coming from, this is where we are right now, just by normalizing the file in Dehancer. I'm gonna push the temperature a little bit because the scene itself was quite warm, so I'm gonna push the temperature a little bit, and that looks good to me for now. Of course you can adjust the tint, you can adjust the exposure, but exposure looks good to me, tint looks good to me. We're not going to differentiate anything, and that is basically what you have in your input panel. And then you move to the next panel, which is film, and this is basically like the bread and butter of Dehancer, and this is what separates it from all the competition and all the other options out there, because they have a ton of film stock that has been baked into the software. This might be a little bit overwhelming, you know, you're spoiled for choice, but the idea is you need to sit with this, get to know the uniqueness of each film stock, and then apply them as it applies to your film, or just go through each one and see which one suits your film best, right? For this one I'm going to go with CineStill 800T. I like the way the film stock looks, and T in the CineStill 800T is tungsten, so my scene is tungsten. I'm using a tungsten film stock and it just matches nicely. And then this push and pull means you can, you know, push and pull the film stock, right? And again, this is one of the things that makes Dehancer very interesting, in the way you are able to interact with the film stock, in the way it works with your clips and all of that. So here in the CineStill 800 you can push it or you can pull it whichever direction you want, like somewhere around here, you know. I think this looks good. This is before, this is after, and we look at the next thing, which is film developer. Here is where you boost your contrast, your gamma, color separation. You know, you can boost your colors and all of that good stuff. And you know, if you boost your color, of course it works like saturation, and that way if you boost your contrast, I'm gonna reset that real quick. If you boost your contrast, of course you have more contrast or you have less contrast, you know, that's what that does. Gamma, you know, it helps you to adjust your gamma in your video. This seems to look good. And you know, color separation as well, the same thing. But in this case I'm not going to do anything on this side because, you know, I like the way the shot looks, so I'm just going to skip that. Then the next one is film compression. Now what film compression does for you is it helps to clip your highlight. So if you look at the areas of his arm right here, and where you have like the highlight, the brightest part of the image, when I click enable, you can see that it shrinks the highlight values. Again, if you were using scopes or you're using waveform at this point, you can see that. Let me just bring that up real quick. If you see before film compression, after film compression, before film compression, after film compression, so you see that it just helps you to clip the highlight a little bit so that the roll off is a lot nicer and it looks more filmic than digital, right? Of course you can, you know, go all the way, and you're almost losing almost all the highlights, or you can just keep it very little so that it's a lot more subtle. For impact, let me see, I want to just roll off nicely. So in this case, because 100% works for me, I want it to be a very nice clean roll off. I'm going to leave that at that. Why I don't need to be this extreme, so I'm just going to leave it on default setting at the 100. Tonal range, let me set it back to default and see where that looks. This is all the way. I don't need it to look all the way like this, because now it's looking like there's no highlight. I'm just gonna dial it right back down a little bit, and I think somewhere here looks good. And color density, I think the color density right here looks good enough. Color density basically boosts certain colors in your video, so it doesn't saturate or desaturate the entire scene. It just saturates or desaturates certain colors. So basically density, it makes some colors heavier or some colors lighter depending on what scene you have. So again, you look at before, you look at after. So I've clipped the very bright high point of the video, and again, it's looking really good. And then the next thing you have is expand. Here is where you adjust your black points, your white points, your color mode, and all of those things, right? And here is basically you can add a little bit more contrast or less contrast depending on what you want in the scene. And in this situation, I'm just gonna, let me see my blacks. I typically prefer looks that are not very contrasty, right? I like a very nice roll up from shadow to highlight, so I'm not really going to be attacking the blacks too much. I think I'm going to leave that on 0. Then for the whites as well, of course I don't want it to be like all bright and shiny in your face, and at 100% looks good. Let me see, let's just bring up the exposure just a tiny bit, right? So if we keep it somewhere around here, you go before, after. The entire scene is a little bit brighter, but not not too much. So basically that's what expand does for you. I'm just going to leave that normal instead of luma, and that's what you have in expand. Then the print, again, this is another wonderful tool that you have in Dehancer that again separates it from a lot of other plugins, right? Besides having all of this film stock built into Dehancer, you also have film prints, and basically by default it's going to be linear, but you have all these other options. And this Kodak 2383 is a very popular one. It's used a lot in films that we've seen everywhere, so it's a very popular film print profile. But again, you have other options: Fujifilm 3513 film, print film, Cineon film log, and Kodak Indra glossy paper. And you can see how all of them, all these film prints, affect your final grade. In this case, we're going to go with Kodak 2383 film print, and again, you can see what it does to the video. It has a little bit more contrast and has that characteristic Kodak 2383 look to the final grade. Again, the beautiful thing about Dehancer is there's a lot of granularity in this software, so there are lots of levers that you can push and pull to really dial in your own particular look to see what you want. So again, let's see, I'm gonna take down the highlights just a little bit. Again, I really like soft, gentle highlight roll off, so I'm going to just bring back the highlight a little bit. Exposure seems good to me, so I'm not even gonna adjust that at all. I'm gonna keep it at default. Tonal contrast, again, I don't like contrasty look. I don't like looks like this. I like to keep it a little bit not contrasty. I want contrast, but not too much contrast. Again, you can adjust your color density, you can push some colors. You can see this is really pushing the reds and the oranges, but I think I like where it is right now, so I'm just gonna leave the color density. Saturation is good, and basically, yeah, that's what we're gonna do there in the print. Analog range limiter, this gives you a lot more analog look, and it's going to limit the range of your highlights and shadows right in the grade. And yeah, there you have, if you enable that. But I think I like the way it looks without that. And this is before, after of the film print. And yeah, that is what we have there. Then we go to color head. Now color head is where if you've done color grading for a while, you feel right at home with color head. You have your yellows and blues, magentas and green, cyan and red, shadow tone, mid-tone. This is basically like your color wheel, right? But instead of having a wheel, you have sliders instead, and you can adjust your shadow tone, you can adjust your mid-tone, you can adjust your highlights, and be as creative as you want. This scene already looks really good. I'm just gonna add a little bit more coolness to the shadows. I'm gonna dial back the mid-tones just a tiny bit, just to, so that it's not just fully warm. There's a little bit of teal blue color in there somewhere. And yeah, I think this looks really good to me. Again, the shot was already looking fire from the very beginning, and this was just so that it's not just full warm. We are highlighting the windows, the light on his side, on this edge light right here, the edge light on his arm as well, just to accentuate those daylight lights that is hitting our subject. And yeah, just looks good to me. Also, we have film grain, the famous film grain. Of course, a lot of people like film grain. I think I am on the other spectrum of that, because I am not a fan of film grain. I think it has its place in some certain projects, but for this was a commercial we shot for a client, and I would prefer a very clean, clear shot with no film grain. So I'll prefer a look like this that is just clean, looks good, looks filmic, of course without the grain. But for the sake of demonstration, I'm just gonna add a little bit of grain, and now you can see we have a lot of flavors. The idea is, the lesser the film grain size is, for example 8mm, the more grain you are going to have, the bigger the grain. The higher you go, 65mm, the smaller the grain size and the more subtle it is gonna be. Again, the lower the number, 8mm, you're gonna have a lot bigger grain, and it's gonna be a lot more visible in your final file. The higher the number, like 65mm, you're gonna have a lot finer grain, smaller size, and it's gonna be a lot more subtle. Again, because I'm not a huge fan of grains, especially on project like this, corporate project, commercial project, I want it to look clean, crisp and sharp. But for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to keep this at 65. Smallest grain is there, but very subtle. Of course, you have halation as well. Halation basically is, that red highlight you have, that red outline that shows up on your highlight. So if you look at this arm right here, this is the before and after. If you look at the brightest part of the images, that red outline shows. Again, it helps to give you that filmic look. But in this case, I think the scene is already looking really warm. We're not going to use halation at all, so we're going to hide that. Then you have bloom. Of course, bloom blooms the shot, right? It also helps you to reduce a little more contrast, gives you this dreamy look, gives you this glowy look around the subject. Again, at 8mm is very pronounced, at 65mm is a lot more subtle, right? But again, I don't think a bloom effect works for this, so we're gonna dial back down. And we go to film damage. Of course, this is where you have all these artifacts running on the screen. That is film damage. Again, looking at this particular scene and for this particular project, we don't necessarily need it because it doesn't tie into this, so we're gonna take it off. Film breath basically gives your video a pulsating effect, so it makes it look like hold film when it's being projected through a projector. So the colors shift in and out a little bit. Here's a little bit more subtle. Let me change it to 8mm so that I can see it in full action, right? So you have this, you see the colors changing, that is film breath. But again, this is not like a hip video. This is a lot more subtle, corporate style, and there's a lot of colors and tones going on right here, so I'm not going to use film breath at all for this. And then gate weave, I'm also not going to use that here, but what gate weave does is it gives your video a little bit of a shaky movement a little bit. So again, it's characteristic of film. Film is not pristine and perfectly static. There's a little bit of shake there, so gate weave gives you that effect. And I'm gonna hide that. We're not gonna use that here. Overscan as well, we're not gonna use that. Basically what overscan does is adds this film size scans to your video. But what makes this one so good is the fact that it's not just a PNG. The film scans themselves, they're animated, so you can see there's a pulsating effect right there, and you have different like a plethora of options that you can choose from. You have ultra 16, you have super 8, you have super 35, you have so many options. But again, we're not going to use that right here. Vignette, of course, that's self-explanatory. You enable that. It darkens the background a little bit. we are to bring the focus on the subject here. We're just gonna bring a little bit of vignette right here. So you have before, you have after, so you can just focus in more on the subject. You have your monitor. What it does is it gives you a false color to monitor your exposure, or a clipping indicator to see where you're overexposed. And in terms of output, you can dial it back down. This is like our raw file, log file from the camera, and this is at 100%. And if you feel it's a little bit heavy, you can just bring it back down to your outcome. This is 88%, this is 0%, but I think I like it at 100%. It's just a level of contrast here I like, but not pushing it too much over the edge. And load generator, so in order to save your workflow and give you a consistent look over different projects based on the film stock you choose and based on the profile that you choose, and in order to speed up your workflow, you can save your entire edits. So that's your selection of film stock, film profile, glow, elation, grain, all of that. You can save that as a lot and export that, so that way you can just drag and drop that next time and your workflow is a lot faster. And that's what you do here. And then you have your options where you can check your license, check profiles, and do all of that. Having gone through all of this, you can see that there is a lot of stuff happening with Dehancer Pro. They packed it full. Because this is a pro version, you have all of the tools in their armory. You have it inside one single plugin, which is the pro version. And it's again, it seems like it's a lot, but just take it one step at a time. You don't have to use everything under the plugin. You just take it one at a time. You use whatever it is you need to use, and you discard whatever it is that you do not need to use based on your project. And when you take it one step at a time like that, you realize that it is not as intimidating as it might look at the beginning. Plus, you can always export your LUTs, and that saves you so much time on subsequent edits. And that is basically a run through of all the tools available under Dehancer Pro. From there, we'll go to the next clip. This clip is a wedding video of a very good friend of mine, and this is what we did with just Dehancer. Oh, by the way, all these edits are done only in Dehancer, nothing else. No color wheels, no color curves, no hue, saturation layers, just Dehancer. And you can see just again the same process. We go into the input, we normalize it. This was shot on the A7S3 in S-Log3 Cinema Gamma 3 Cine. And for this one, we use the Fujicolor C200 as the film profile of choice. We adjusted the color, boosted the colors a little bit, because typically weddings are like colorful and bright, and white, and it's a lot of bright, interesting colors. And again, same thing with film compression. You can see that with film compression, there's a lot of highlights that were recovered in the suits, in the sky, in the veil, and that's what film compression does for you. Here at the expand, we brought down we added a little bit of contrast, but at the same time made the whole scene a little bit brighter, right? Increase the exposure a little bit. But for this one, we did not use the Kodak 2383 film print. Instead, I used the Kodak Endura glossy paper because I just like the way it looked better. And that's another thing I wanted to point out. Just because Kodak 2383 film print is very popular doesn't mean you have to use it on every single edit, unless that is your style or that's what you're going for. Did a little bit of adjustment here and there for color density and tonal contrast. And here we have this. Did a little bit of adjustments in the color head, the yellows, the blues, the magenta green, and shadows. Brought back the shadows a little bit, dialed down the highlights a little bit, and then went from that to this, just to give a little bit more greenish tones, and fight those reds a little bit, because we're looking a little bit more magenta than I wanted. So introduce some greens to normalize the whole thing and made it look really good. Again, I didn't use film grain because, like I said, I'm not really a fan, but I used a little bit of elation, and you can see that on the suits, on the edge of the dress. But bloom, I went all out on the bloom. Weddings are supposed to be dreamy, they're supposed to glow, they're supposed to take you on a journey, and that's exactly what I did here. So I went all out, 8 Super 8 on the bloom, just to add that glowy effect. I didn't do any other thing. That was that, just with Dehancer. And this is before, this is after, before, after. Again, another clip This one, I wanted to show this because this was shot on a drone. It shows that Dehancer doesn't work just on cameras, like cinema cameras or hybrid cameras, but if you have a drone as well, you can get amazing results. This was shot on the DJI Air 2S in D-Log, and just the same thing. For this one, I used Fuji Color Superior 200 and I pulled it a little bit, like significantly actually, because I was like really having a good time with the colors. It was golden hour. This is my neighborhood. Everyone was looking so amazing, and I was flying the drone that evening and I decided to take this shot, and I wanted the colors to really be punchy, so that's why I really pulled it. Boosted the colors, reduced the contrast. Like I said, don't like a contrasted look, and just went from this to this with just boosting the colors, adjusting the gamma, adjusting the contrast. So went from this to this, making it really punch, really shine. Film compression, like I said, we're already losing a lot of the highlights at this point, but because we had film compression, we're able to bring back a lot of those details. This is really extreme because, like I said, we're losing the contrast. So again, play with your tools. You get to know them better. You get to know how they can solve your creative problems the more you use them. So for this, thanks to film compression, we're able to bring back a lot of the details in the sky. Of course, with the expand, I was able to leave the shadows, and the bottom part of the shot was not lost to complete darkness, which was a good thing. And this one, we're back to the famous Kodak 2383 film print. I just left it as is on default. This is before the film print, this is after the film print. I really wanted the attention to be at the top of the frame, where you will have the sunset and the rest should just fade into darkness. And I wanted just like a kiss of light on the roofs, really accentuating and showing that the light we are getting is the light from the sunset. And yeah, that's what I did with that. So that was why I chose 2383, and it looked gorgeous. This is before, this is right here. Of course, did a little bit of color adjustment to suit me because it was looking too blue. There was way too much blue at the bottom of the frame, and I wanted it to be a little bit more muted. So introduce a little bit of green into it and then muted the colors a little bit, and voila, we have that. Again, I didn't use any film grain here, but I used elation because I wanted a little bit of glow. Like look at it right here, before after. I wanted a little bit of that evening glow, but not too much. No bloom in this place, no film damage, no film breath, no gate weave, everything good to go. And that's how it went from this to this. By the way, this is what this looks like. It was just like a nice shot of the sunset. Next shot, this is a very quick one. This was shot on the Canon R7 in C-Log 3 Cinema Gamut, and this shot is just random shots of me and the guys on the street. And this one I went all out with some other effects I've not used before. Again, regular stuff. Normalize the clip, use Fuji Color, a little bit of film developer, film compression to bring back a lot of the highlights in the sky. You can see that. Didn't do much on expand, just let it as is. Again, we're back to Fujifilm 3513 print film. In this case, this one worked better for me. Did a bit of color adjustments and color head. But here's where I was going to. Here I used grain, but just sparingly. This is without the grain. It looks clean, it looks crisp, which is what I would typically go for. But for this one, we're experimenting. Decided to put a little bit of film grain, and it's just there, just subtle enough to see in his hand area right here. And because I'm using 65mm at ISO 500, you can see right there halation. I wanted a little bit of halation as well on the shoulders right here in the bright spots. I wanted elation a little bit. Then bloom, I wanted a bloom, and you can see that right here, just to give it like a little bit of a glow. And here I added film damage. I wanted it to be obvious but not super obvious, and you could see it here and there across the clip. And film breath, now I've not used film breath up until right now, but I used film breath here because it was looking like a straight video and I really liked it. It was, the colors kept going and coming. You can see that, like the colors kept pulsing in and out, and it's just very beautiful to see. And I also added a little bit of gate weave, a lot of gate weave actually, 8mm, and that's where you have that the shake in the clip, and the way the video, the colors kept going and coming. The combination of that makes it look really like film, and I really love that for this kind of video. And yeah, that basically is how Dehancer works in Final Cut Pro. Dehancer Pro is not available for just Final Cut Pro. It is also available for DaVinci Resolve, it's available for Premiere Pro and After Effects. And while these two might feel a little bit more expensive at $450 for lifetime access, compared to developing actual film rolls, it is a lot more cost efficient. So when you're ready to take the plunge and pick up your lifetime access for Dehancer Pro, use the code 35mm at checkout for 10% off. And if you want to check out their iOS app, which was also recently released, they basically have a very stripped down version of the full Dehancer Pro film stocks on the app. So you have the editing tools brought from your favorite NLE into the mobile phone, and you can easily edit your pictures, edit your videos on the go with the same film stocks that you have already been used to. So when you open the app, you load in your picture, you are first of all greeted with the presets built into the phone app. You have all the film stocks, different options to edit your pictures. And if you want to take it a step further, you can go into the edit tab and then dial in the halation, the glow, the amount of contrast, saturation. You have so much options to finesse your edits, and your edits are going to look seamless whether you're on the go or you on your computer. Thank you very much for watching this. If you would love to try this out, or if you have tried this out, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you would love to pick up a license, again, use 35mm lens at checkout for 10% off. And if you would love to pick up the iOS app, pick it up, take some pictures, take some videos, edit them, and tag us on social media. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next video.